Joshua Fernstein has released a video called the $100,000 Atheist Challenge, in which he promises to give $100,000 to an atheist who can disprove that God exists. So I'm hoping to claim that money at the end of this video, because I can't prove that there isn't a God, because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. I assume that what he means by God is his God, the God he believes in, and I can definitely prove that the God that he believes in doesn't exist. So, first of all, I would like to offer him a challenge back. The 20 quid challenge. I will give Joshua Fernstein £20 if he can disprove that I have sat here on my, right here, an invisible unicorn called Pinky. Hello, Pinky. Cute unicorn. Pinky, my friend here, of course, he is invisible, and he's supernatural. So he's beyond the laws of physics and everything else. He can communicate with me telepathically. I have a close personal relationship with Pinky, the invisible unicorn, and I will give you £20 if you can disprove it. Now, I know you can't disprove it because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis, just like the existence of a God, but I'll give you that challenge. Disprove that my good friend Pinky here doesn't exist, and I'll give you 20 quid. I'll send it through PayPal. So anyway, let's get on to something which was said by Joshua Fernstein in the video. And I quote, "In fact, if you were to ask an atheist, I don't think you'd actually be able to condemn something like the Holocaust and the killings of millions and millions of innocent people. Why? Because he believes they're just an accident." And then he goes on, "Survival of the fittest? Well, how then was Hitler just not the fittest? How can you ever condemn something like that?" He then talks about how it's wrong to murder people and how we know it's wrong as humans. And he says, "If we were just some biological concept as far as a human being and a man, how would we have that knowledge?" And then it is obviously his answer to that is because God has written it on our hearts. Yeah. So basically, I wrote down my reasons to disprove this argument, because I've heard this argument many times. I believe it was first popularized by the C.S. Lewis book Mere Christianity, and Christians seem to think this is like some awesome argument, like, yeah, we've got you. One, humans possess empathy, which is an emotion just like happiness, sadness, or anger, and this allows us to be empathetic to someone else's suffering and take pity on them. Two, you form social bonds with people, which allows you to feel anger and pity on their behalf, which links into my first point about empathy. Number three is the collective conscious. Humans, just like all other animals, realize that members of the same group depend on each other for their own survival. So killing them is detrimental for your own survival and will turn the rest of the community against you. So if you're an ancient tribe, like you're a hunter-gatherer society, and you kill a guy who's good at hunting, the rest of them will turn on you because you killed one of their people who they need. And also they would fear that they will be next, and so they would all turn on you. And you'd either be killed or expelled from the group or whatever. So through that, we already have this notion that we can't just go around killing people because it's bad for ourselves and for our own survival. Number four, imagine you are a mother and you want your children to survive because that will help your chances of survival, and you love them. One child hits the other, so you chastise that child so that they do not do harm unto their sibling. The sibling grows up knowing that it's wrong to attack people, and there will be a consequence of senseless aggression.
So I've just given 4 reasons why early humans would decide, that it is wrong to kill people. I'm guessing that societies which did not adopt cooperation and a value consensus did not survive for very long, and most of us will have been descendants from those groups which did adopt them. And these morals were passed down through generations. So this whole idea that you need a God to come up with morals is complete and utter rubbish. Also, you need to explain to me why morals are different in different places if they were given by the same dude. How come cannibalism is accepted in some societies but not in others? Why is stoning homosexuals and adulterers acceptable in some societies but not in others? How come morals change over time and societies reach the conclusion that something is wrong or right through their own reasoning, and certain things have to change, i.e. slavery used to be acceptable, and then that was challenged by some thinkers, and they won the debate, and society adapted its values because they used their cognitive reasoning to do that. Okay, now to disproving that your God exists. If you look at it sensibly, if you look at the Bible, if you look at the many unfulfilled prophecies, for example, the one about Tyre, Tyre has definitely been rebuilt, despite the Bible saying it would never be. Egypt was never handed to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar failed in his only attempt to invade Egypt. It was said that Jesus would inherit the throne of David. Well, David's throne was an earthly throne, not a heavenly throne. And when Jesus was questioned, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So therefore he didn't inherit David's kingdom. So that's just a few examples of prophecies which never came to pass. And also, if you look at the stories in general are quite ridiculous. I mean, Noah's Ark is impossible. You cannot fit millions and millions of animals on a boat which is smaller than the Titanic. And then you've got to think, what would they eat? And then, how would they'd just be in such cruel conditions, and then they'd be shitting everywhere, and they'd just be packed in, they'd be rolling, I don't know, shit. They weren't even getting in the first place, and then they'd die. It's just the whole story is not well thought through. And there's no evidence to suggest that the whole world flooded. There's not a shred of evidence to suggest that the whole world flooded. There'd be tons of evidence. The fossil record would be turned on its head if that happened. There'd be millions and millions. The sedimentary layers would be completely different to what we see now. So your God supposedly did this, but there's no evidence for it. Why? Because it didn't happen. And the Exodus, if there were 2 million Jewish slaves in Egypt which escaped and formed their own country, then how come there is no archaeological records to suggest that? I'm not. Apparently, the answer to this apparently is that the Egyptians destroyed all the records. Well, there would still be plenty of evidence to suggest a massive recession taking place if 2 million slaves in a country whose population was like 3.5 million Egyptians. If 2 million people left and they were all slaves, then the economy would take a nosedive. And there's no evidence of that ever happening. There's no archaeological evidence of masses and masses of people wandering the desert for 40 years and then taking over cities and creating their own nations. None of that. None of the Bible characters until David can be verified historically. So that's evidence, certainly, that God doesn't exist. I know, Joshua, how you like to play word games. I'd like to do one of my own. Now, if nothing is impossible with God, because God is all-powerful and all-knowing, etc., etc., then can God build a wall that is so high that even he can't get over it? Can he do that? And I just want to know, because if he can build a wall that's so high that he can't get over it, then that means that he can't get over the wall, which means that he's not all powerful. And if he can't build a wall that is so high that even he can't get over it, then he's not all powerful in that respect, because it's something that he can't do. But you've got some explaining to do if you think that your God would do things this senseless. Look at the world around you. Look at all the people who starve to death. And God looks at that, this benevolent God. He loves them. He doesn't want that person to suffer. He knows that person's suffering. He has the power to stop them from suffering, but he doesn't stop them suffering. So he can't be all free, all knowing, all loving, and all powerful. Now, the final point I want to make is, why would an all-loving God create a system where, in order to survive, certain animals have to kill other animals, or else they will die themselves? They will suffer themselves unless they cause other animals to suffer. And that is the system which apparently an all-loving God created. So that's my final point, that carnivores disprove God's existence. Prove me wrong and I'll give you 20 quid, and I'll claim my $100,000. Looking forward to spending that, really. 100 grand. Wow, you better have 100 grand. You better not be bullshitting me. Alright. You better not be bullshitting me. Which, because, Christians aren't supposed to lie, are they? So, yeah. So, that's it. That's all I've got to say, really. Bye. Ooh. Celebration shit.